Good morning. Nowadays I can feel a friendly breeze. Can you feel? And our hillside is soon going to blossom for spring. And all living beings are full of life in this season of fresh green. In the energy of spring, I can feel the joy of life. As I feel the joy of life, at the same time, I think about the last moment of life. It's because the origin of life is inseparable from its death. It may sound very paradoxical, but Master Sotaesan, the founding master of won-buddhism, said, birth is the origin of death, and the death is the origin of birth. He also said, those who die well can be born well and live well, and vice versa. Once born, everybody must die. Sooner or later, we will have to face death. This has been the unchanging truth, and it will be the same in the future. In Korea, there is a proverb which goes, a servant monk goes to the market. And there is a story behind this saying. One day, servant monk's master told to him, I want you to go to the market tomorrow. The next day, however, the master could not find where the servant was. The sun had almost set. By the time the servant monk appeared, and the master was very upset and shouted to the servant, where have you been all day? I told you that you needed to go to the market today. That's what I did, monk responded. You told me to be at the market, and I've been to the market. You did? The master was dumbfounded. He scolded servant monk. Do you know what I wanted you to do at the market? You just went there and came back without knowing why you needed to go there. How could you be so foolish? As punishment, the master had him bring a wooden stick and hung it around his waist. The master ordered to servant monk, if you ever find anyone more foolish than you, give this stick to the person. And sometime later, the master became very sick, and servant monk could feel that his master was in critical condition. So servant monk entered the master's room, thinking it may be the last moment to see his master. I think now is the time for me to leave, the master said to monk. If you leave now, where will you go? Monk asked. The servant's question made the master think. The master said that he would leave, but he had no idea where he was going. I have no idea. Then when do you plan to leave? Servant monk asked. I don't know. The master had no clue to that question. Then when are you coming back? Monk asked again. I don't know that either. The master had no clue to that question either. And servant monk said, "You scolded me when I went to the market without knowing why. But at least I knew where to go and when to come back. Dear master, you don't even know where to go or when to leave. I guess you are the one who should carry this full stick which you had me carry." The servant untied the stick and gave it to his master. Most people in the world are actually carrying this servant monk's full stick. Do you agree? But the problem of birth and death is too important to be neglected. And time goes so fast, so Master Sotaesan, the founding master of won-buddhism, said, "Although there is no fixed time in the solution of this problem, but people over 40 must start preparing for the approach of death, so as not to be in a hurry to meet their last moment." Then how can you prepare for our last moment? First, living this life fully is a beautiful and powerful way to prepare our death. By living this life fully, we can actualize the value of living. Master Jeongsan, the second head Dharma master of won-buddhism, said, "It is difficult for one to have the initial thought right for whatever one does in the world. And it is also difficult for one to take good care of the last one thought at the end of one's life. If one's initial thought is right, then everything one does turns out right. And if the last one thought is right, one's eternal future can be right." So life is the accumulation of each moment. This moment is the only time that we can manage. This moment, as it is, will be the last moment of our life. So we should bring a fullness and attention to each moment of our life. If we keep practicing mindfulness in this way, we can lead a worthwhile life and we can take good care of the last one thought at the end of our life. Second, to die well and to be free from life and death, we should know who we are. I think that who am I is the most important and fundamental question in our life. You may think, I'm Doc, or I'm Tom, who is a farmer, who has 2 children, who is very friendly and handy. What else would I be? But when you say, I'm Tom, what is it? Is it your body? Or is it your thought? The human body is constantly changing and aging. Each and every cell in our body is set to totally replace itself every 7 years. There are about 75 trillion cells, and it takes 7 years for them all to be replaced by new ones. That is, for 70 years, the body goes through a complete change 10 times. So if you say that your physical body is you. You are a different person from the you 7 years ago. And our thoughts and emotions constantly change and are not eternal. The body is not true me. Fame is not true me either. And pride is not true me either. These are all false I, and there must be my true foundation. Master Jeongsan said, human body is the aggregation and dispersion of causes and conditions of earth, water, fire, and air. Human mind is the rising and ceasing of the 7 feelings of pleasure, anger, sorrow, joy, love, hatred, and desire. These are all false body and false mind. Among these are a true body and a true mind, which are the true essence of all things. The true body and the true mind are transcendent and pure, without rising and ceasing. This is what we call the light of self-nature. We have to find out our true self. So we should ask this question, who am I? If we live without knowing who we are always carrying the servant monk's stick. Venerable monk Bobjeong said, who am I? Ask by yourself. You have to ask it again and again until your inner self is revealed. Don't ask it inattentively. You have to ask it earnestly with inner voice to your inner ears. Then the answer is in the question. As Master Bobjeong said that the answer was in your question, what we have to do is only keep asking wholeheartedly. When we ask the question, we have to completely entrust it to our foundation and let our foundation solve it. Then masters say, if we use our intellect to play with ideas and concepts, those answers will not be helpful to us. When the false me is eliminated by our sincere and dedicated question of who am I, the real me will emerge. And to solve the problem of birth and death, we need to know the principle of birth and death. Then we can transcend the fear of death. The founding master of won-buddhism explained, birth and death were originally not two. He said, a human being's birth and death is like opening and closing your eyes, inhaling and exhaling, or falling asleep and waking up. There might be differences in how long these take, but the principle is the same. Birth and death are not two. Originally, nothing is born or perishes. Therefore, the enlightened person regards it as change, but the unenlightened person regards it as birth and death. Enlightened person realized that death was not the end, but another beginning. We cannot prove it right now, but it is certain. People who know the principle of birth and death may be peaceful through life and death. On the other hand, people who are ignorant of this principle will be nervous and uneasy when they are near death. And fourth, to prepare our last moment, to have an enduring vow is valuable. To make a vow for eternal life is to make a commitment. Before this Dharma talk, we chanted Ilwon-sang vow, and it is our aspirations before the Dharmakaya Buddha and before Buddhas and all sages. To make holy vow to get enlightened for the benefit of all people leads to a purely altruistic way of life because it is oriented not to myself, but to the welfare of all people. It is the mindset that seeks for the greater good of the public, not for the private small self. From this point, a great vow or aspiration is different from one's selfish desires. Making a vow to attain Buddhahood for all beings is like receiving light from a lighthouse when our soul becomes lost. Making a holy vow with utmost sincerity will work as a torch which leads our soul out of a maze or dark path. By making vows, we can be liberated from our ignorance and we can eliminate the barrier of karma. So the founding master of won-buddhism said, no matter how much a person might have accumulated money throughout his life, he cannot take anything with him when he dies. How can we call that which we cannot take along with us our eternal possessions? Our eternal and true possession is the vow regarding the right Dharma and the power of the mind that has cultivated it. So practitioners should devote themselves in making vows. Even on the deathbed, one should be able to concentrate on this vow, the one-pointed mind to attain Buddhahood and care about other people. Fifth, in order to die well with a clean and transparent mind, removing our attachment is very important. Attachment means getting stuck to something. When you are attached to something, it is hard for you to detach yourself from it. When you are attached to something, past thought, current thought, and future thoughts are all stopped up, and we cannot think freely or wisely. Your only concern is for that something to which you get attached. A person with an attachment is like a bird carrying a heavy stone on its wings. Even if the bird tries to fly into the sky, the weight of the stone will obstruct it. In the same way, once you become attached to material things or a certain emotion, such as love or hatred, you will be bound so tightly to the object of your attachment that you will not be able to fly high and free as you want. Our minds tend to be attached to someone who is dear to us. parents' love for their children and one's love for one's spouse can also be an attachment. Attachment can work very negatively for the person who seeks for liberation or enlightenment. Practitioners with attachment will become like a ship anchored in the harbor. Even if the ship would like to embark to the vast ocean, she cannot move since she is anchored. The founding master of won-buddhism said, if one is attached to love, then it gets in the way of practice. Because one cannot leave the beloved one, or because one misses one's lover. Do you have this experience? When love is not based on a proper relationship, one should know how to put an end to it. If it is based on a right relationship, but contains the potential to interfere with other work because of one's attachment, then he should be resolute so that he will not spoil his work because of love. This is how one frees oneself from attachment to love. The worst kind of attachment is that caused by hatred. So we should try to eliminate such attachment caused by hatred by all means. Anger, hatred, and vengefulness in the mind are very poisonous and big attachment. We have to be afraid of the poisonous mind, just like we need to be afraid of the deadly virus. When a rocket ventures into the outer space, it is said that first several miles of that journey are the most energy consuming. The energy consumed in order for the rocket to go through the first several miles is equal to the amount needed for traveling 500 and 1,000 miles in outer space. This shows how difficult it is to get away from the gravity of the earth. Attachment is like gravity. It is difficult to free ourselves when we have strong attachment. In the Dharma talk for leading the soul before and after death, the founding master of won-Buddhism said, at this moment, keep your mind stable. If you hold even the slightest attachment to some object, you will naturally fall into unwholesome destinies. Therefore, we should examine our minds carefully to find if there are any attachment in our minds. How many anchors do you have in your mind? We need to sincerely practice to let go of those attachments. Things are impermanent. We should let go of these impermanent things and immediately return to the original place of the mind. Master Jongsan said, once you empty your mind and make it like that of sky, you can free yourself from the ups and downs of transmigration. Once you rely on this empty mind, you will always make progress. Once you free yourself from phenomena based on this empty mind, you will always receive benefits. As Master Jongsan said, emptying our mind is the most important practice. To prepare our last moment, I would like to say again that we should live this life fully. We should ask the important and fundamental question repeatedly, who am I? To realize our true self. And we need to know the principle of birth and death, the truth of no birth and no death, in order to transcend the fear of death. At the last moment of life, enduring vow is the most priceless treasure that guides us. Having a holy vow to get enlightenment for the benefit of all people is like having a torch which lightens and leads us out of a dark path. At the last moment, maintaining a clean and transparent mind and removing attachment is very important. I will conclude this Dharma talk with a song. The name of the song is "It's Time." While listening to the music, let's think about our last moment of life. Thank you.
It's time to sever the ties. It's time to say our goodbyes. We are one spirit world who are gathered this day to see you on your way. It's time for the spirit to flow. It's time for attachments to go. Now before you awaits the pure Dharma gate to guide you on your way. Look and you'll find your original mind. Look for your Buddhahood. With grace may you part from this earth, and may grace await your next birth. We are leaves on a tree who must one day break free to go about our way. Where there is no death, where there is no birth, look for your Buddhahood. It's time when the spirit can learn. It's time when compassion returns. In